All right. Welcome to the live. It's been a minute. It's been a long time. Had a lot going on over the last few months. So going live haven't been an opportunity for me right now, but now we are back going live again. Uh, had a problem on Facebook. I'm in Facebook live jail right now for some strange reason. So today we're going to be talking about why religion is harmful to society. If you've been following my page for a while here, then you know that in deconstructing from Christianity, I also look at the effects that it has had um, as far as on societies. And in a video that I'm posting later on today, I talked about the fact in that video of how secular countries around the world, especially in comparison to America, which America seems to want to become a Christian nation. Like many people want it to become a Christian nation. Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome. I ain't seen you in a while. It's good to see you too, Boss Lady, Crypto, Joe, Josu. I'm probably saying that wrong. It's good to see people. But in the video that I'm going to be posting later on today, I discussed in the 10-minute time frame how other countries, secular countries like Sweden, Norway, Japan, have a better quality of life and they're more secular. 70 to 80% of these countries are non-religious countries. They're more secular. Japan has developed a culture that's based on honor and duty. They don't put their senior citizens in old folks' homes and forget about them. So they take care of the orphans and the widows. But yet here in America, we're supposed to be a Christian nation. And when you look around the world, the most Christian nations have some of the worst problems: corruption in government, out of control gun rules. They have higher murder rates, higher suicide rates. For Christianity to be such a religion of love and loving of yourself, because you're supposed to be in, having this Holy Spirit in you, yet the suicide rate is higher, the homicide rate is higher, the death rate higher. Everything is higher, except for the good things. Education, lower. Food, lower. Healthcare, lower. Right? All these things are lower because are lower. What that should be good, should be better if a person was Christian, right? If loving your enemy, praying for your enemy, turning the other cheek, following the laws are things that Christians practice. But yet, in the countries that proclaim the most Christianity, these are some of the lowest. We have the lowest of these things, And it is funny how the quality of life, something as basic as food, you would think a Christian country would want to provide better food for the people in starvation. America throws away enough food, if you can call it food, but America throws enough of it away that it could end homelessness in America and most other countries. Where's the charity? Where's the charity? What up, Bird's Eye? You should check out my interview I had where I discuss how I was kicked out of my apartment and martial arts class by Christians, forced to move because of my religious practice. Damn. A man, Minos, got kicked out of his martial arts classes and his apartment because he doesn't practice Christianity. Easy demonstration right there of how this religion does not promote fairness and equality, that it is more about controlling people and slavery, diminishing people's voice. The Constitution, or the Declaration of Independence, which America is about to celebrate 250 years. Declaration of Independence says that everyone has the inalienable right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yet, Your happiness can only be pursued as long as it does not violate or is not out of order with what Christians have deemed it to be. And then it depends on which Christians. And then it depends on which Christians, who makes it even worse. So we got these people claiming to be of this loving religion, this tolerant religion, but yet they are intolerant to the point where they don't allow a man to practice martial arts or live in an apartment because of his religious practices. If you don't mind me asking, Munoz, what was your religious practices that got you kicked out of your apartment, out of your classes? I did put the link on YouTube for in case you wanted to come up and just tell us instead of trying to type it all out, because that could be a whole lot. I'm not sure. Renegade said, let me put this up here. I've been currently deconstructing from Christianity as well, and some of the darkest and twisted people are so-called religious. Yes. Isn't it interesting that churches, about 60% of churches across America have SA insurance? Just think about that for a second. 60% of churches across America have SA insurance. Why do they need SA insurance? The fact that an insurance company would insure them in itself is crazy. That is not an insurance that I would have in my portfolio if I owned an insurance company. You got to have SA insurance? That's crazy. That's crazy talk. That a church would have to have that. Makes absolutely no sense to me. You know, oh, there was something else. No, that would take away from that. I'm not sure. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And that the Catholic Church has an SA fund. Can you believe it? An SA fund. They have set aside finances so that when people file claims against the church for SA, they have a fund for it. They actually got money. Yeah, I didn't know it was the thing either, Gen X. I had no idea. I just found that out like a week ago. But then they have a fund set aside to pay for all the SA. So a lot of the tithes that Catholics are paying in churches is going, so I ain't gonna say a lot, but some of the tithes that Catholics are paying in church, in their church, goes to an SA fund. Should that be a fund, or should you take care of the problem? Fund or problem? There's a video that I'm going to do later that my wife sent to me. Not later today, later this week, where teachers, before they go on a field trip, before they can escort a field trip in this Catholic church, they have to go through sexual harassment training. I mean, not teachers, parents. The parents who want to escort these children on a field trip have to go through SA training first. Shouldn't that be something that maybe they priests should go through that, and they nunneries should go through that, the bishops and the cardinals should go through that kind of stuff? Maybe that's what needs to happen. God, he raped Mary. She was young. She was even ready for kids. It's these thirsty men. Exactly. Like, this guy takes advantage of Mary. Maybe that's why they don't think it's a problem. I mean, this guy took advantage of a, 13, 14-year-old girl. It's not a problem. Rachel and Leah was forcing their slaves to have sex with their husband. It's not a problem. Abraham, his wife Sarah, forced her slave to have sex with her husband. Maybe it's just not a problem. It's not a problem in their eyes because there's too many examples of women not having rights, women not having the ability to determine who they're going to sleep with and who they're not going to sleep with. So the problem is inherent within their religion. They teach themselves through their religion that the value of women, no matter the age, is only their sexuality. I mean, when you conquer someone and you tell them to kill the men, kill the women who've known a man, and kill the all the baby boys, but take the young girls as your wives who've not known a man, then I guess that makes it okay. Maybe that makes it okay in their minds, because their book says that they have a right to it. This is why the slave master thought he had a right to the property of his slaves in America, and that he could essay those women. And this just didn't only happen in America. It happened around the world. It happened all throughout Europe. It happened during the Roman Empire. It happens during most empires. This is just a negative thought process of man. But then when you back it with a religion, it makes it all right. Thankfully, we are in a more enlightened time today than any of the history that we have ever looked at, any of the history that we know of. Because today we recognize the value of a person having agency to choose. We recognize that a 14-year-old girl is not mature enough to make those types of decisions unless you're in Mississippi. But you don't have the rights, you don't have the maturity to make those types of decisions. So we are more enlightened today than the Bible. We have higher moral standards than the Bible. And that is why I say that religion is harmful to society. Because our societies today, even though there are still many problems, but in most societies today, even America, we have a higher moral standard than the people who wrote the Bible, the people who followed the Bible, the ones who governed by the Bible. So when you have people like the little fake King Charles saying that we have been guided by the Bible, by Christianity. Now, I know he's just placating because, I mean, the thing is, Charles don't have any power. He has power, but he doesn't control government. He doesn't control government. So thankfully, he's just a talking head. And he can come in America and say that, but I noticed that he didn't go to England and say that. He didn't say that shit in England. He come to America and say it because he know the right wing, MAGA movement, Christian nationalists will eat it up. That shit wouldn't play in London. He ain't gonna stand in front of Parliament and say those words. Because England is a more secular country, which is why they have better health care, which is why they have a better work-life balance, which is why they have lower crime rates. This is why they have better education than countries like America, because they're not being governed by Christianity. Christianity want to keep you dumb. For 1,500 years after the canonization of the Bible, people were not allowed to read it. Well, not almost 1,500 years, more around 1,200 years. 1,200 years, they weren't allowed to read it. It was illegal. It was a crime if you had a copy of any Gospels or any form of a Bible. That's why they killed Tinsdale. That's why they were pissed at Gutenberg. You would think Gutenberg thought he was doing a great thing. Oh, I invented this printing press, and the first thing I want to print is the Bible because I'm a good Christian. Not according to the people who was running Christianity. You're letting the people know the bullshit that's in this book. You got to think most people back in the day were just like most Christians today, in the fact that the only parts of Christianity that they knew is what the priest told them. Just like most people, the only parts of Christianity, those who claim Christianity, the majority of them only know what the pastor preaches. And they only understand it from the context of what the pastor preaches. This is why the pastor skips over places like Judges 19. I don't want to tell that story of Judges 19. We want to skip that over. Or they try to demonize people like Delilah when the worst person in that story is Samson. They don't want to talk about the fact that Judah, when he said that Tamar was more righteous than him, it wasn't because he slept with her thinking she was a prostitute. It was because he wouldn't give his son up. And they gloss over the fact that she dressed as a prostitute. I did a video today that I'll be posting later on about how God of the Bible seems to like prostitutes. So they gloss over these parts of the Bible. They gloss over the genociding that's in the Bible. They like to skip that. You know, they like to talk about how the walls of Jericho came crumbling down, but the only person who was saved from that was a prostitute. And they try to say that it was her faith. It was the woman is written as a turncoat to her own people. And so they took the lowest person within the community, one of the lowest people in the community, to make her into a turncoat against her own people. Right. But they like to focus on the wall. They obeyed God, walked around in circles, and then on the seventh day, blew the trumpets, and the walls came down. Then they kind of stopped. They don't tell you how they went in and they killed all the men, they killed all the women, they killed all the babies, they killed all the animals, and they burnt everything to the ground, and they totally genocided those people. They don't tell you that. This is why you have Christian nationalists will be okay when a president comes out and says, we're going to bomb a country into the Stone Age. We're going to utterly destroy that country. We're going to pretty much kill everyone in that country. They don't have a problem with the genocide because that's what their book tells them to do. Genocide. And so they genocide. What other country have you seen in today's world? I know there's some Christians out there, the first thing they're going to start to bring up is some old shit. But in today's world, that is okay with genocide. All right, let's see if we can have a guest up over here on TikTok. Make sure I got my volume up. Chili B,
What's going on, bro?
How you doing? Doing well.
I was listening to what you were saying. I just got in and I was listening to looking at the problem. And you're right. And I can give you one thing. It's not religion. It's false religion. So if people don't understand the beginnings of Christianity, going back to when it was established and why it was established and who established it and for what reason, then you'll never understand the prophecies that what the scripture actually talks about and why they had to falsify it to complete their narrative. And what I mean by that is when you go and look at the beginnings of Christianity, going back to Antioch when they were praying, the apostles were praying, and were called Christians, that was not because they believed in the Most High. It was because they were pagans, creating a narrative of total dominance and subjugation, which Rome pushed that narrative of Christianity. Because in the beginning, when Jesus walked the earth, he never spoke about it. He never spoke about it. He never talked about it. He never said when those people that were following him, and he was supposed to be the great teacher, the Messiah, he never said that they were Christian. He said they were disciples. He says, those who follow me, they are my disciples. He never said they were Christians.
Well, of course,
Christianity came when Paul met Jesus on the road to Damascus, and he started the conversion of the Romans and the Greeks, the pagans. And when they went to the upper room, see, Peter didn't even want to have nothing to do with that because he did not want to include the pagans for that particular reason, and because he knew that Paul persecuted the church. So when they went and they say it was talking about in the day of Pentecost, when hold on, tongues came down and these people were being converted and they were called Christians, that was an ethnic slur.
Okay, hold on.
That was not,
hold on.
That was not because they were actually Christian because Jesus made them Christian.
Chili. Hold on, because you're kind of preaching here a little bit.
Okay.
So let's go back to the beginning parts of what you were saying. And you're saying that first, let's just understand that the word Christian, yes, it was a slur initially, but it just means someone who follows Jesus, follows the who they deem to be the Christ, right? That's all that means. All right. So regardless of what they call themselves, what Jesus said, Christian or not, that doesn't really matter. But not really. It does.
When the Catholic Church adopted Christianos, and they had the Council of Nicaea, the first and the second Council of Nicaea, the Christianity that Jesus talked about did not represent what Jesus actually taught.
But what I'm saying is that there were various versions of Christianity and Christians well before the Council of Nicaea. For 200 years before the Council of Nicaea, you had various groups, and all of them, and they were considering themselves followers of Christ. Whether it was the Marcions, the Valentines, the Gnostics, all these people call themselves followers of Christ. So what becomes the Catholic Church was just another variation that was more in line with Roman law. Right? So all these people consider themselves Christian, followers of Jesus. And they all had different viewpoints. But none of those viewpoints don't take away from the fact of what the actual words that were spoken mean. So when Jesus called the Canaanite woman a dog, demonstrating his ethnocentricity, which today we would call racism, the Catholic Church didn't change that. The Marcions didn't change it. The Gnostics didn't change it. Nobody changed that. Nobody twisted that. That's what he's saying. That the only reason that he was going to heal this woman is because she accepted the fact that she was a Canaanite and she is beneath the Israelites. So she accepted her space, her place in society as a lower substandard. So how was that twisted?
When Christianity became the state of Rome, legalized it within the state of Rome, before the Catholic Church was officially established, paganism was added to that Christianity. Those are facts. Paganism was brought over into that.
Okay, but you're not answering my question though. How was Jesus' teachings of ethnocentrism, which we call racism today, how was that twisted?
Well, my question to you is, how was that be called racism? Because Jesus did not create that system. There was no system of white supremacy. He did not subjugate people based on their financial situations. He did not create those systems. There were no system. Racism is a system in which you dominate a person.
You don't understand. You're not understanding what I said. Jesus displayed ethnocentrism, which today we would call racism, by telling the Canaanite woman that she is a dog and that she is not deserving. And it wasn't until she accepted that she was a dog that he then was willing to help this woman. That is ethnocentrism, which today we would consider racism.
I see what you're saying. But I think what Jesus was actually trying to say, because the Gentiles, all Gentiles were considered dogs. All of them were considered dogs, not just her. Because she was a Canaanite. She was a Gentile. And the scriptures even said that Gentiles were considered dogs because they were pagan in how they worship. The idols that they bowed before, Baal, and all different types of things, lewd things that they were doing that considered them dogs. They were unclean people. They were not like the people that were chosen, which were the Jews, the original Jews, the Israelites. They were not like them. So Jesus was making a point that because I came to die to unalive for your sins, you have to first acknowledge what your position is, who you are. You are a Gentile. You are a dog, but I am bringing down the curtain so that you can be added to the church.
So let's go into
that. Was his purpose.
So let's go into that.
Was to include them.
Who established the fact that one group of people are better than another group of people?
Well, God.
Right. So that same mentality is in Christianity. And would you say that that is morally justified, that a God would determine that one group of people are better than another group of people?
Well, yes, it would be morally justified, because when we look at sin and how sin was imputed into the world, even by the first sin, which they say was between Adam and Eve was first deceived.
Wait, before you go into that. So you are fine with a system of society that would say that one group of people are inherently better than another group of people. So when white people say that when white people say that they are better than black people, you're fine with that?
No, absolutely not.
Then why are you fine? Why are you fine with?
That I'm making is they took that scripture. The Europeans took that scripture and they twisted it to fit their narrative.
No.
Not that saying that, oh, God don't like just white people or God don't like black people. They took that scripture for the purpose of subjugation. Even going back to the Romans, they took those scriptures for the purpose of subjugation. Because if we look at the history of slavery in the transatlantic, we know that the Catholic Church were the ones that funded the first slave trade.
Yep,
they were the ones that funded
that. We know all that.
Not just them.
We understand that.
Ashkenazi Jews too.
So you're fine with Jews being better than everybody else?
No, because those ain't even those are not even the real Jews. They ain't the real Jews. Even the scripture says. The scripture says, "I know to them that say they are Jews, but they're not." Who was he talking about?
I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about Jews. Period. If there is a ethnically Jewish person, and those ethnically Jewish people, you would be perfectly fine with being subjugated under them.
No.
What?
No, but what I'm trying to say,
your God established that.
The message that I'm trying to convey, again, is that when the Catholic Church funded the slave trade and they started grabbing people of melanated color, or phenotypes, they actually went over there and started putting people that look like them, that look ethnically white, over for that purpose to justify their slavery, to justify the scripture that black people were inferior. That's why they did that, because the Bible that we read now is not the original text that were actually written 12 to 1,500 years before they retranslated in 1511 by King James. It wasn't even a real text. The original text, and it wasn't even a full text.
The Bible does say in Exodus and in Deuteronomy, in Leviticus, that you can take foreigners and make them into slaves for life.
Yeah, yes, it says that. But if you're reading the original text, which I have the Bible with all the books in it, even over in Jasher, even in the other books, what they are talking about is explaining who the real people are, you will see that there was more context to it and why he said that. There were more context to it. That's why the Council of Nicaea decided to get rid of certain books to justify their behavior and saying slavery was justified. And that's why the white people decided to use the Bible in context to justify their belief that people were inferior and that they should be subjugated.
There is nothing out of context when you look at the Bible that said that. When you look at Leviticus, it clearly just states that you don't make your own fellow people into slaves, but you can make foreigners into slaves. There is no out of context to that. So you would have to say that the book of Leviticus is just wrong. But it clearly says that you can make other people who are not of your group slaves.
If I give you a book that was written as a historical context of things of the past, but however, someone comes and take that book, someone else, a foreigner, comes and takes that book and takes out books without your knowledge, and you're given that book, but you don't really know anything about the book, but you're taught about
what does taking out what does taking out other books have to do with Leviticus 25?
It has a lot to do with it because there were other books, there were other scrolls that was part of that book that they took.
So it would be in contradiction of Leviticus 25.
There's a lot of contradictions in the scripture in this King James version. There's a lot of contradictions.
Okay, I don't
read other books that contradicts those books.
Okay,
because those books were not added. You're
being incredibly vague. In your statement. Now hold on. Don't look. Listen. It's obvious that you have an issue with Europeans. Okay.
Absolutely.
But I'm not talking about Europeans. I'm talking about what the book says. Leviticus 25 says that you make of your own people, you don't make into slaves, but unless there's special circumstances, but of the foreigners, men and women, you make them into slaves. And you're saying that there's other books that were not part of the canonized versions of the Bible that contradicts that.
Right.
So then are you throwing out Leviticus and keeping Jasher or whatever books you say that contradicts it?
I'm not trying to contradict it.
Is Leviticus part of is Leviticus?
What I'm trying to convey is,
hold on, no, stop. You repeating yourself because you're repeating yourself. Simple question. Should Leviticus be taken out of the Bible?
No, it shouldn't be taken out of the Bible, but you should get the full context. And there's other books that have fuller context than just Leviticus alone. So
Leviticus saying that you can make foreigners into your slaves for life, property, pass them down to your sons. What other context could there be other than what it actually says? What other context could you add to that?
Okay, number one, you have to look at why that said that. So when God was talking about the Levitical priesthood, those kings that were ruling at that time, the priests that were ruling at that time, he was talking about people who were foreigners, and the slavery at that time did not mean the slavery of today. It was a different time. They were more indentured anything.
No, sir, I'm not going to let you do that. It says that you own them for life and you pass them down as property to your sons. It is only when you have someone of your same tribe that they are indentured. But foreigners were slaves for life. That's why they're able to be passed down to their son as inheritances. So that's why I'm saying it doesn't, either you got to take that part of Leviticus out if you think that there's a contradiction. There's no other way to explain that.
That's true. You got a point there. You got a point. As I'm listening to you and clearly getting, what you're saying. But again, my argument is still the same argument, is that these people, if we're looking at things in its full context to justify why slavery was put on one set of people and not another set of people, I believe, and this is just my opinion, is that when these people from the West adopted this foreign book, it was for the purpose of slavery and building wealth and building empires, to justify that, using a book in which they historically have subjugated the whole world with.
I mean, that argument you can put that
translation, transliterations, and all this other stuff. I mean, I get it.
Hold on, but can again wait before you go on to it.
Wait, my question to you. Let me ask you this question: how is it that this book that's been around for over well over 3,000 years. Well over 3,000 years. Not including the old books of Dead Sea Scrolls, the canons, and all this other stuff before it was transliterated. That was in Hebrew, Sanskrit, and all this other stuff. How is it that the only people that have benefited historically were the ones of the West, the Europeanized nations? And they all look Caucasian, and they don't look like the people that belong in that atmosphere in which they got those books. They don't look like that. How is it that we see a white Jesus in all these books and all these pictures that which Michelangelo painted, Leonardo da Vinci painted? How is it that the scripture says something totally different from his phenotype?
Okay, so
how do we justify that?
You want me to justify it?
Yeah.
All right. So here's the deal. Based on, and I'm also adding in what you were saying earlier about these people utilizing this book to enslave people, right? So throughout the world in history, even during that time frame of what they call the Age of Exploration, right? Which is when the transatlantic slave trade started, right? But even before that, the trans-Sahara slave trade was already going on, utilizing the Quran to justify their slavery of the northern mid-Africans.
Yeah, northern African, Egypt,
right?
All that other stuff.
So they were utilizing the Quran. The people of the Dahomey were utilizing their religion to justify enslaving and capturing and dominating the tribe of the kingdom of Wayuda. So effectively what I'm saying is that any of those religion has been used by empires to justify their enslavement of whomever they consider to be their enemy or just a weaker country. Now, it would not have mattered if the Roman government had adopted Mithraism as the only religion. So let's say Theodosius the first in 381 had determined that Mithraism was going to be the religion of Rome. That would not have stopped the Age of Discovery and the enslavement of Africans. The enslavement of Africans happened because of economics and innovation. Anytime you have an agrarian, when the world was pretty much still in an agrarian society with the number of people, population growth that was going on, slavery is something that was inevitable. It was going to happen. You had to have it. They had it in Mesoamerica. When those things as they were in an agrarian nation and as they built kingdoms, you had it everywhere in the world. It wasn't until industrialization starts to happen that slavery becomes outmoded, right? So it would not have mattered what religion was going on, and it would not have mattered about Africans or anybody else, because the landscape of the Europeans forced them to innovate. They didn't innovate because they're smarter or anything like that. Innovation happens when there's a need. And because their lands don't produce enough for the people and the population growth, innovation had to happen. They had to start traveling. And in those travels, they developed, traveling allows you to develop more technologies and learn more things and grow your communities. And so inevitably, they were going to come to a point where whoever was coming out of there were going to dominate the world, because they would have more innovations like guns, better ships, cannons, things of that nature. So the religion is just the excuse that is utilized for what would have naturally occurred through civilization.
Well, from what I know about European history, therefore, when Christopher Colombo, what we call Christopher Columbus, he was also a criminal, and he was a young man at that time. He went to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella saying that he found gold. They said, well, if you can find this gold, then we'll not exile you.
Sir, I'm gonna have to stop you. Chili, I'm gonna have to stop you because Chili, I don't know where you're getting that history from, but that history is incredibly wrong. Incredibly wrong. Christopher Columbus was in the court of Ferdinand and Isabella because he wanted to become a famous explorer and get rich. This is true, but he thought that he found that there would be a shorter route to India, and because the Indian spice trade was considered, the Indian spices were more valuable than gold at that time frame. So his whole voyage had nothing to do with gold. Maybe you're thinking about Cortez, because Cortez, his expeditions was about gold, but not Columbus. Columbus was about getting a faster route to India, because before that, they either had to go all the way around Africa, or they had to go through the Mediterranean, and then there was no Suez Canal, so then they had to take land and try to get to India. So he was looking for a shorter, because he thought the world was smaller. So he thought that there was a shorter route by sea to get to India to get that spice, right? So it had nothing to do with gold. It had nothing to do with criminals, and the exploration, because England actually came into the game a little bit late in going out and exploring, coming to America, I should say, because England was more focused on India and some of their African communities. That's why South Africa became a big place for them, because that was like their midway stop point before they get to India. So that was the big race back then, was to get to India. Nobody thought about getting to America or things like that. And Australia didn't become a penal colony until much later.
Right.
So it wasn't about crime and things of that. I'm gonna say this, and I say this with all the I'm trying to be nice about it. I think that you're being blinded by your distrust. I'm gonna say distrust. I ain't gonna say hatred, because that'd be too strong of a word, because I don't know you well enough. But I think that your distrustful Europeans is somewhat blinding your critically thinking through the processes. Because it's
not blinding. What it is that when we have been taught as African Americans or Africans or melanated people, we have been taught this fictitious history that we're always finding out throughout the days of our lives as we live that is false. We've been taught this falsehood. We have to debunk every damn thing, because everything is built up on science fiction with these people. Everything is fictitious with these people. And we have historical facts to formulate that data and come to that conclusion that they are liars. They are historical liars. So when we look at the history that we've been taught, Christopher Columbus discovered America, but other people were already here. Europeans are the great explorers. They are the great philosophers. They're the great engineers. They are the great this. They are the great that. We have to then sometimes go back and look at the history and look at the present and make the comparison and say, wait a minute, if they're the greatest people, how is it that every empire that they built throughout the years has always crumbled? If you're so great, if you're so great, why do you need other people's labor to build your foundation?
Okay.
Your foundation should be built with your hard work.
Okay.
Their DEI, what they call us, inheritance.
So Chili.
Why do we need somebody else where we can build with our own ingenuity?
So
why we need somebody else's labor for?
So why are you not doing the same thing to this Levantian lies of history, which is the Bible? There's no Exodus. There was no Noah. There was no flood. There was no Adam, no Eve. There was no Moses. None of those things ever happened. There's no Abraham. So none of those things in the Bible ever happened. None of the people ever lived prior to Hezekiah. We have no proof of any of them. And actually, there's more archaeological proof, geological proof, that those people never existed, and the things that they say that happened never happened. We don't have reliable proof of Jesus. So if you are going to dissect their history and the truth and lies, why are you not dissecting the truth and lies of the history of the Bible itself?
Well, I do. Well, I actually do. I actually do, because like I'll tell a lot of people, if you change the names, all the names that we know about Jesus are Greek names. Jesus, Jesus, is a Greek name. It's like a Japanese giving a Japanese person a English name and going to Japan and calling that person who's Japanese something in English. He's not going to understand that, because that's not his culture. That's not his name. He's going to be called by the name his culture gives him by his parents. So how do a man who was born in Bethlehem, who is a Hebrew, come up with a Greek name? So when you change the name of anything, you're changing the meaning of what his name symbolizes and represents. And that's why when we look at David or Job, those names did not exist at that time. So if you change these names to represent something in English, you're changing our foundation too. Now everything's in question, because it does not mean the same thing in their culture as it would mean in ours. It doesn't mean the same thing.
Okay,
it's just you're taking away that whole person's identity.
Okay, that's a minor.
Replacing it with something else, along with the history.
That's a minor point, and you're truly avoiding what I'm saying. Because if you truly were dissecting the history of the Bible, and without the Old Testament, there is no Jesus, but the Old Testament is a bunch of fables and myths, then even if there was a historical person named Jesus, then which would translate to Joshua today in English.
Right. Yes,
right?
Yahweh saves.
Okay. So and the Greek version is just a transliteration, because they don't have the sounds in their language in Koine Greek to be able to say Joshua or Yahshua. So they did the closest thing they had, which was Ius. And then the Latin is Isus. But since English is a Germanic language, we can translate Yahshua to Joshua. But the point is, if all the Old Testament stuff is false, there's no Moses. So during the Transfiguration, when Jesus claimed that he saw Moses and Elijah, well, there is no Elijah, there is no Moses. So then that would make Jesus a liar.
But let's look at the Hebrew name of Jesus, which is Yahshua.
Okay, we don't need to look at that. We don't need,
just Joshua.
We don't need to look at that. What is how could Jesus be telling the truth when Moses never existed?
But if to say that Moses never existed, which let's use that argument. Moses was the foresight of everything that were written aforetime, like during the beginning stages of Adam to Moses, the first 5 books, the Mosaic Law. That was the foundation. It's kind of like saying it was not the predecessor, it was the forthcoming of this Messiah. It was the end of one law and the beginning of a better law. Even the scripture says that when one law ends, a better law, a better covenant, a better promise will begin. And that better covenant is built on better promises. So when Jesus came, he says, I did not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill the law. And what is to fulfill the law is to bring it to pass, right? To build a better understanding. Instead of going by the 10 commandments, he says, I'll give you a better.
Okay, you're not answering the question. You're not answering the question. If Moses never existed, then Jesus is a liar.
You could also say that Jesus never existed, and you can say that the Bible never existed.
Well, Jesus didn't never exist.
They all talk about the same thing.
Well, Jesus didn't exist in this biblical sense. He never existed. But there's absolutely no biblical scholar outside of apologetics that says that Moses and the Exodus is a true story. He never existed.
But if that's the case, if you're going to eliminate one artifact out of this book, you have to eliminate the whole book and say that the whole book didn't exist.
Yeah, the whole book is false. The whole book is false, without except for a few minor details. Did this city exist? Yes.
You can't even trust it. You can't even trust a few minor details if you're going to say the whole book don't exist.
Well, no. See, now you're doing something. You're trying to destroy my argument by saying that you have to get rid of everything. But the fact that the city of Jerusalem is mentioned, it existed. We know Jerusalem existed. Certain kings, certain battles, we know those things happen because we have archaeological data that demonstrates these things. It's kind of like saying, in your thought process, if I say Spider-Man doesn't exist, then New York don't exist. Well, we know that's just flat out not true. We know New York exists. So you can't. That's why I said except for a few minor things. But on its whole, it doesn't. No, most of the things in the Bible never happened.
Oh, okay. So what about Israel? Did Israel exist back then? When it talks about Israel, the ancient Israel? Because last time Israel became a state in 1948.
From the time frame of Hezekiah, we certainly know that Israel existed. It is possible that during the Bronze Age collapse time frame, which would be about somewhere around 1000 to 900 BCE, that there were a tribe called Israel who were all fighting for dominance now that the Egyptians had lost control of the Levant. Because we know during the time frame of the Moses story, Egypt controlled the Levant. The time frame of the Joshua story, Egypt controlled the Levant. So you don't have an opportunity for a tribe to develop themselves as Israelites and have a kingdom until around 900 BCE. So it's possible that there could have been the beginnings of it happened in around that time frame, but we only can be assured of the Israelites as a kingdom in the 700s. Now, the Merneptah Stela does talk about a group of people who are called Israelites during 1200 BCE. So there probably was a band of people called that during that time frame. But they would have never established anything until after the Bronze Age collapse. So those are the things we can identify, and those are the things that we can prove. All that other stuff, we know it didn't happen. We know Moses and the Exodus never happened. We know Joshua's conquest never happened. So if Moses didn't exist, to go back to it, and then I got to go because I try to keep people to like a 20-minute thing, then Jesus, during the transfiguration, claiming to be standing there with Moses and Elijah, then Jesus is a liar. But you're not deconstructing that. You want to deconstruct white people history, but you won't truly deconstruct the Bible and realize that it's all a fictitious story made up by some Levantian people. See what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. I mean, and that's your stance. And, you know, I can agree on some things, but I can disagree on others.
I understand.
And that's fair. You know, it's fair. We're, you know, some things that makes us different makes us alike. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Right.
But, you know, like I said, you know, every day you're going to learn. As you grow, you're going to learn. If you stop growing, then you stop living. So it is what it is.
No, but let me let some other people get on here.
Go ahead.
But I appreciate you, man. You have a good one too.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
It's been a minute. Okay, good. He disconnected. It's been a minute since I've done these live, so y'all be patient with me.
Hello.
Hey, Munoz. Now, is your name pronounced? I know you told me before, but it's been 2 months since I did a live. How do I pronounce your first name?
Josue.
Josue?
Yes.
All right. What do you have for us today?
So I was the one who commented about how I had the interview with someone who interviewed me, where I got to tell my story about how I was kicked out of not only my martial arts class, but my whole apartment because of my spiritual practices.
That's crazy. Tell us about it if you want to.
Yeah, sure. So, Okay, so I kind of was like I was staying in this apartment that this like organization helped me get.
Hmm.
Um it was a Christian organization, but like when I first like signed up for it, reason why I found it because like I was when I was 21 years old, I was aging out of foster care, so I didn't really have like anywhere to go. I didn't have like no family or friends, so I could have easily ended up homeless. So like that was one of like the few options I had to help me get on my feet. So I signed up for that, and they told me that we are a Christian organization, but we don't force it on you. Okay, so that seemed to imply that, they accept people regardless of their religion, regardless of whether they're like Muslim, Buddhist, atheist, or whatever. So I had been there for quite some time. And, my spiritual beliefs were something that I usually kept private to the outside world. At that time, my family didn't even know about it. I had like a whole altar in my room where I did like stuff like magic, witchcraft, and all that stuff in my room. One day, an inspector came into my apartment. You know how apartments do those like yearly inspections.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, so like the Christian organization, like they like partnered with them with like a property management
Hmm.
that like owned the apartment. So as I was renting the apartment, I was paying the property management my rent, same way you would renting any other apartment,
Right.
where you have a lease and everything. So one day, an inspector came into my apartment. You know how they do those like yearly inspections? She
Yeah.
walks into my room, sees like my altar, my little shrine I had to a deity, and some of like my like occult witchcraft stuff I had in my room. And she goes and tells the entire community that my entire community, word started going around that I was a devil worshiper and that I worship Satan. And next thing I know, they come and tell me that I can either discontinue my like practices and leave my spirituality behind, or I cannot stay there anymore. And if
Hmm.
I choose to stay there, they're gonna do inspections in my apartment more often to make sure I'm not engaging in any of that stuff. And someone in the community went and told my martial arts instructor at a taekwondo class that I was taking. For some reason, they felt the need to tell my martial arts instructor that. So, which implied that like the news was like spreading all throughout like my community, my social circle. So, um, I got a text from my martial arts instructor while I was at work and said, "Hey, we yes, come to our." They texted me said, and I got screenshots of the text too. They texted me and said, "Hey, we have it has come to our knowledge that you are no longer with this um that you can no longer stay in your apartment due to devil worship. We hate to do this, but we cannot support someone who worships Satan, so you are no longer welcome to train here."
Have you filed lawsuits?
Um, I haven't had time to take any action as of yet. I've been very busy with work and all that, but that's something that I am looking into. Yes.
Okay, so you've been following me long enough to know what my attitude is going to be about that.
Yeah.
I ain't had time is a bunch of bullshit. So that's the first thing. I ain't had time. Man, I ain't got time. No, that's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah. So
There,
like, yeah.
almost every state in the United States has fair housing laws where you cannot reject someone based on those type of criteria unless it is already agreed to by the state through a 501 organization that this housing in particular is for these types of people. There is an ability to do that. So in your lease, does it say that you can't be any other religions?
No, it did not say that when I signed my lease, and it did not say that. They
So
said
you read the lease.
they said to me, we are a Christian organization, but we don't force it on you. Is what they told me.
Okay, what they tell you doesn't matter. What's in the lease is the only thing that matters. If the lease have you read the lease from cover to cover, front to back,
I
the
did.
whole?
Yes. I did.
Okay,
We
so
went over
that,
the lease when I signed up for the apartment.
all right. So if the lease doesn't say that, then they will be in violation of Fair Housing Act, and so you would be able to file a lawsuit against them, and you should.
Yeah,
So
and it's not like I was like going around trying to look like spooky and dark or witchy or anything. That was something that I kept private in my own space. So like that inspector had like no business going around telling people what I had, what I was like. Like it's no one's business what I'm doing in the privacy of my home that I'm paying for every month with my money, as long as I'm not hurting anybody.
no, I agree, and that's why I say that you would have a good lawsuit against them, and I wouldn't settle out of court with it either. I would push that damn thing to get as much as I possibly can. Now, as far as your Taekwondo instructor, now most businesses have a right of refusal of service, and don't really have to give you a reason why, but they can't. But I think that they are under rules where you can't refuse somebody because of their religion, right? Like, yeah, I'm trying to, like, I know in Georgia, where I used to have my other businesses, and here in Texas as well, you can't refuse somebody entry into your
Yeah.
business for religious reasons or race or gender or anything like that. You can have your no
Yeah.
shoes policies, but you can't have your no non-Christian policies. So I would sue them too.
Right. Yeah, and this was all in Georgia too. I was living in Athens, Georgia at that time. I after I got kicked out of my apartment, I moved to South Carolina.
Oh, I know in Georgia they can't now. Yeah, you got an easy lawsuit, dude. So what the hell are you waiting on? What's your problem?
I gotta see who to like who's the like right person to reach out to in regards to like what action I can take.
No, all you do, you need to just call either a civil rights lawyer. I would call a civil rights lawyer and go from there. I'm sure wherever you are in South Carolina, well, you probably want to get a Georgia civil rights lawyer.
Yeah.
But I will find a civil rights lawyer in Georgia that will take your case, and that's it.
Okay.
And all that is like 10 minutes of research so that you can identify a good lawyer, and then a phone call.
Yeah.
So what you waiting? When you gonna get this done?
I did send like a message to like the Department of Justice, but they never got back with me.
Yeah, I wouldn't send it to them. The federal Department of Justice or the state?
I don't remember which one it was.
Yes, the federal, I wouldn't have. That's a waste of time. I would send it to the state. But even sending a letter to the state, that ain't gonna really do much. That's just a complaint. So when you gonna get this done?
As soon as I can, when I get the chance.
That's not what I asked you. When you gonna get this done?
Today.
There you go. That's the right answer. That's the right answer. Today. Get the shit done today. You see, as long as we allow for people to push their Christianity on people and we don't hit them in their pockets, then ain't shit gonna change. Right? They'll keep doing things like this because nobody's busting them in the pockets. You bust them in the pockets, make it public. That's when people start to recognize and act and realize that people have agency to not have to deal with this bullshit.
Yeah, and my story did go viral on social media, and I wasn't even trying to go viral either. I made a post on Reddit about it. I posted it on Reddit, and like a few weeks later, I all of a sudden discovered that there was news articles about me, people making YouTube videos about it. There's a video about my story. It was a YouTube channel called McDojo Life. They did a video about me a few months ago.
Mm-hmm. That's good for your ego.
Yeah.
But it ain't good for your bank account.
Yeah.
So let's get that bank account. All right.
Sure thing.
All right. Well, I appreciate your Jose.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
All right. Thank you for letting us know your story and everything, and look forward to more conversations. And I'm gonna look forward to an update too.
Sure thing.
If I don't get an update, I'm gonna cuss you out. I'm just telling you right now.
Alrighty then. I guess I'll talk to you later.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Look, y'all know me. Ain't got time for no bullshit. We gotta get shit done around this place. Go back over to TikTok. I know people been waiting. I'm trying to get back to allowing people only 20 minutes. I gotta get back now. Bishop Nubs on TikTok over here.
Hello. I have started a cult, and it's the cult of integrity. We are, in fact, the green light cult. You can find us at every four-way corner that has a stoplight. Even the Christians pray to my God. And if you want to find where you can find the substance of my God, you can see any driver's manual across the states.
I was wondering why my last 2 months have been peaceful. Actually, it hasn't been peaceful, but it's been a lot of work.
What's up, brother man?
Nothing much, Bishop Nubs.
So, I've learned a lot in the past couple of months. I've learned that I need to watch out for bears and calling people bald head.
What?
I might get some she bears.
What the hell are you talking about?
The scripture of the children.
Oh, you know what? I'm always looking for you to be saying something crazy as shit. So I'll be looking deeper than I should be looking. What do you think about the subject matter, sir?
Well, I told you. I told you that the perfect religion is the religion of the green light. It is my cult, in fact. That is the one that has benefited humanity.
The fact that we have red lights and green lights to promote traffic safety?
Yes. Use your blinker. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
It works perfectly. Now, the God of the Bible, this God would give you parasites that are found in, cat shit that cause you to lose free will. So, well, you know about that parasite, right? In cat shit?
No.
Yeah, there's a parasite in cat shit that causes you to do all sorts of irregular, outside of normality type of shit. Yeah, like there's all sorts of different parasites that can cause your body to do things that you would not normally do.
And a Christian would say that only came into the world because of sin.
Yeah, but yet sin does not have any evidence of creation. And I would say that every Christian that asks, where did we begin, doesn't know, the concept of energy cannot be destroyed nor made. It's always been. It's a constant. So there is no beginning. And when you're searching for a beginning and there is no beginning, I could understand why you would continue to search.
Because they have to have a beginning.
Right.
Without a beginning, then they can't justify their story. So and that allows them to have a creator. Yeah.
Just like without Serapis, they can't have their Jesus model.
Serapis and a few more.
Right.
So they have to have those things, and those things have not benefited society at all. Even though when Christians say that, this person was a Christian and they helped stop this or stop that or invented this or invented that, that person would have done that regardless of Christianity.
Yep.
And oftentimes some of the things that they do is in violation of Christianity. It's just the continued maturing of society and not their Christianity that caused them. They did, because they would have been worshiping Mithra and they still would have did the same damn thing.
Yep.
So there's no benefit to having religion, because even without religion, we would still do that. A nice person is still gonna be a nice person.
Man, I keep on nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. I'm still rude. I'm still arrogant. I'm still interrupting. Wow. Horrible. Anyways, my final thought is, did you know that if you take the divinity of Brahma away from Brahma and make him merely a man, right? So you take the divinity part away. Do you know there's about a 70 to 75 percentile correlation with the story of Abraham and the story of Brahma? Almost like it's a game of telephone.
No, I didn't know that. I would have to go back and read the Brahmin story again.
And that's based off of an AI, surmise on both sides. Like I said, what are the parameters? Where do these stories correlate?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And because correlation is matching up, right? We can worry about the things that don't match up and where does it make sense and where does it not make sense?
Right.
And it was on the divinity aspect that was one of the major hiccups, because obviously Brahma is the creator god. But in the story of Abraham, he follows the creator god.
Okay.
So in telephone, I could see how follow creator god and is creator god. Well, that's not too far off. And from one dumbass to another, well, I know some dumbassery when I've seen it.
Yeah, and that you can find that in a lot of stories. Like you can look at the Hercules story. He was probably a king. He was probably a king of Argos, but then got legendized to become the son of God.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we see that with the founders of Rome. Romulus, he probably was the dude who founded Rome, but then he gets legendized to becoming the child of a god.
Right.
And
it's the deification of the elders, and it's talked about in the Bible. It's like they tell them not to do it, but yet here we are doing it with every character that is an angel, or because the one gentleman was talking about translations and everything like that, and Job not being the right name, right? Well, what's Job's other translations? Thought.
Jesus being right. He was talking about Jesus, but yeah, I get what you're saying. He's just angry at white people.
Oh, I know. He just hates me because I'm beautiful.
I ain't say all that.
And
ain't nobody saying
well,
that.
I mean, it is my cult that I gotta be repping. It's the cult of integrity.
What?
And clearly, I'm the most beautiful angel of all.
It was nice having you, Bishop. No.
I'll catch you later.
All right. Later.
Glad to see you're well.
Thank you. I hear you too. Same to you. That joker. All right, we got miniature.
Hi, this is Manny Boss. How you doing, man? I just this is my new username. I agree with the topic. Our religion is so harmful to society. Sweden has one of the most. I think it's the second country with the most atheists. It comes second in line, 2026, and it has the lowest crime rates. It has better education, better health care, everything. I've noticed that for a long time since I became an atheist. I was wondering when you were going to do a topic on that.
Yeah, usually I have topics lined up. Weeks in advance. But so that one was something I was looking at earlier. That way I can do more research on things before I do the topic.
Why did you take so long to do a live? You've been gone for like a month now. Were you sick?
No. I had some business stuff that I needed to handle. I had an opportunity to come up and so I had to take care of some business stuff.
I was looking up monotheism. Moses wasn't the founder of monotheism. I don't believe the Bible people existed anyway. But there was a dude called Zoroaster. They said he was a real founder of monotheism. I believe that until I looked up his story, and then they said that he came out the womb laughing and he was burned in a fire and all that stuff turned into ashes. Did he really exist, or is there a real historical person that was the founder of monotheism that we know of? Or do we not know?
So Zoroaster, I mean, those are the story that you're hearing about him is the story about Zoroaster, by him coming out laughing as a baby and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But the Zoroastrians weren't the first one to come up with monotheism. The first indication of monotheism that we have is with Akhenaten and his worship of the Akhten.
Oh, so I didn't know he existed.
That would place, I think Akhenaten is somewhere around 15 or 1600 BCE.
Wow.
So that's a good 1,000 years before Zoroaster.
Wow.
and he was a short-lived pharaoh of Egypt.
Yeah, I know that much about it. Is there anything mythologized about Akhenaten too?
Not really. Akhenaten was one of the reasons he was hated, because he was not trying to say that he was God or a God.
Yeah,
So,
good. I can respect that.
and he was getting rid of. He was really going back to the previous Egyptian religion, where they had a worship of what was called the Ogdo, and the Ogdo was this kind of consciousness that existed.
Yeah.
And out of that consciousness, everything came into creation. So, and it was represented by the Octen, the rising
Yeah,
sun.
I see it now.
So he was really going back to something that was more ancient than him. So
I get
we
it.
don't have anybody to identify that started the idea of the Ogdo.
Cool.
So,
Hey, how do you? I do lives now, believe it or not, of my own. They're not atheists or nothing, but how do you get this stuff to pop up on your screen? Why religion is so harmful to society? How do you get that on your screen? I saw the option one time. I cannot find out how to do it. I want my website to pop up there.
no, so I just went into, what is that program? That's a publisher. That's a publisher slide that I just saved as a JPEG. I made the slide, save it as a JPEG, and then using StreamYard, I imported it into StreamYard so that it shows up on the screen. Because I have options of different screens I can show, like
I get it.
Move the screen around to be different.
Oh, okay.
And that's just one of them that I use.
That's how you do it. You save it as a JPEG and you import it into StreamYard.
Yeah.
Now I know how to do it. Okay. Well, that'll be the last live I'm watching from Deconstructing Christianity. I'll see an afterlife because I know enough about atheism now.
Okay.
Because when I used to like go to church when I was a Christian and to what's it called, temple, when I was a Jew, I converted to Judaism to build up myself whenever I was like falling away and stuff, to edify myself or whatever they call it, the term. But now I used to do the same thing when I was atheist. Now I know enough about atheism to where I'm good on my own, and I think that it's kind of pointless preaching about atheism to everybody now for me to do it, because there's so many out there. And once there's somebody like resurrect somebody from the dead, they'll eventually realize that atheism is the true way and that religion is bullcrap. And even if you're right and they can't resurrect people, eventually somebody will realize that Jesus ain't coming back and religion will end. So I won't be tuning in anymore. Nice knowing you, Coach.
All right. Nice knowing you as well.
All right.
All right.
See you later.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye. I have served my purpose. Oh, okay. I served my purpose. Well, my purpose is not to convert anybody to anything. It's just to continue to explore this and help people in their process of deconstructing. That is actually the purpose now. Y'all know my original purpose is making sure my children will have video logs of things that I know that is important to them, that is important to me, for them to be passed on to them. But I appreciate you, Mention, for the time that you have been here with us. Thank you and good luck on all things that you do. On all things that you do. Let's see. These people still waiting on TikTok. Oh, nope, they all dropped. All right, so right now we don't have any guests waiting. So if anybody if you wanted to come on, just let me know. Yep. Hey, Teresa, how you doing? Teresa, don't get mad at me. I was in New Orleans, not last weekend, but the weekend before. But I was there for a cigar conference, so we didn't have time to visit anybody while we were there, Teresa. So if you hear me mentioning that I was in New Orleans 2 weekends ago, don't get mad and say, why you didn't call? Why you ain't let a sister know? We were in cigar conference, and then after the conference, there's a bunch of after events, and there's after events after that, which last until like the wee hours of the night. And so we just simply didn't have time. Okay. So Teresa, I don't want to hear nothing. We did pick up 400 free cigars while we was at this cigar conference. And now we're going through the process of evaluating every cigar. So we're making a cigar Bible. Oh, my bad. Teresa, you're not in New Orleans. Wait a minute. Aren't you my? Oh, no, it's not Teresa. Sorry, Teresa. But Sherry is on TikTok. So Sherry, sorry, Teresa, you're my brain saw Teresa, thought Sherry. Sorry, Teresa. Sherry on TikTok. Yes, I know you're in Maryland, Teresa. I got it all messed up in my head for a second. So Sherry over here on TikTok. I don't want to hear it. So all that I said before, replace Teresa with Sherry. Yeah, just had to get that out there. No one told me that you weren't supposed to breathe it in the first time I tried one. Oh, wow. Yeah, no, you don't inhale cigars. That's why cigar smokers. And see, that's what information is. And not that part, but just like cigar smokers don't inhale cigars. So when people say, oh, you're going to get cancer, cigar smokers, 0.01%. Cigarette smokers, on the other hand, high percentage. This is why when we research the Bible, we have to get down into the details of everything, because that's where the actual information is, right? So even when we look at how religion affects societies, we have to get into the details. The gentleman before, the first gentleman was talking about how basically the Bible was used for white supremacy. Yes, it was. But it would not have mattered what religion was being utilized during the time frame of the transatlantic slave trade, because slavery was something that was inherent to people all over the world during the time of the agricultural, when everybody was more agricultural than they were industrial. So religion just becomes the scapegoat to justify the slavery that was just part of civilization during that time frame. Depending upon your technologically advancements and who your leadership is, those are the types of things that determine whether or not you were going to be successful or fail, right? Warfare. Now, built into Christianity is slavery, but built into Islam is slavery. Built into every religion, there is some level of slavery that has been built into them if they were developed during a time frame where the world was dominated by slavery. So religion in itself is harmful, mainly because it holds people back. It holds our sense of morality and our sense of justice and our humanity back from being able to look at one another as people, to be able to be fair to other people. Now, are we still going to have wars and atrocities? Yes, we still will have those. But if you can't justify it with a religion, it gives more opposition to that thought, right? Slavery might have ended sooner, might have been less harsh. There's a bunch of things that may not have happened. Women may have had, may have developed an earlier agency within every country if religion wasn't playing a part of it. If it's just humans looking at humans and thinking about how they want to be treated, and then putting forth action to bring those things about, you take away religion and it doesn't stifle it. Scientific advancement. And one of the things, we would have moved into the Industrial Revolution a hell of a lot sooner if it wasn't for religion holding back the intellectual minds of people centuries before us. Right? You think about if Galileo would not have had religious persecution for saying that the earth was not in the center of the universe, him and Copernicus. What would have happened if they were free to demonstrate their findings? Right? Then innovation moves faster. Innovation has gotten us to the point where women are not just looked as baby vessels, where fathers don't sell their daughters. So all those things change faster. and we would be in a much better situation. But religion holds us back, all of them. Every last one of them has held societies back. It said that Star Moon Smiley Face said he had a friend who lives in Sweden, and she mentioned that religion isn't a big thing there and it's relaxed. Yes, I would agree. I've visited Sweden. Sweden is like that. But living in Germany for 3.5 years, religion was not a big issue. People didn't talk about it. It wasn't a part of government. It wasn't a part of determining what the laws would be. And my lifestyle in Germany was a hell of a lot better than my lifestyle here in America. A hell of a lot better. I lived in a country where I wasn't afraid of the police, didn't have that police anxiety. I lived in a country where I didn't have any problems walking down the street at night. I lived in a society where I wasn't worried about people shooting people with guns because no one had them. I was living in a society where I wasn't worried about racism because I never dealt with it the entire 3.5 years that I lived in Germany. But coming back to America, it all came rushing back like a tidal wave. It was terrible. Oh, we got St. Carlos. St. Carlos.
Yo, hello.
Carlos, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine. What about yourself?
Doing great. What do you have for us today?
Nothing spectacular. I would say I hold very similar views to you. I'll just like ask particular questions about humanism, like if you would follow that philosophy or not, or that worldview.
Just to be clear, what's the worldview of humanism?
Humanism. Well, from my personal understanding, or how I follow it, secular wise, because like no God is coming to save us.
Mm-hmm.
The responsibility for reducing suffering rests entirely on human shoulders. To keep it short and sweet.
Okay, we have a similar viewpoint of humanism. I agree with you on each point that you actually made. But yeah, and and also I would add that it is the responsibility of every person to ensure the integrity of every other person having the same rights and privileges that they have. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my stances. That I do take those stances of humanism to be the correct stance that we should all we should all have. Right. So yeah, I think the humanistic viewpoint is on point. That if we all looked at the world and said, how do I want to be treated? And then how do I make sure that the world treats me that way by having the same consideration for everybody else that I want for myself? Having the same freedom and everything else that I want for myself. Yeah. If we can take that stance, then we would end most of the ills that cause suffering on this planet. Right? Because I'm not going to bomb you because I don't want to be bombed. But this Christian nation, this so-called Christian nation of America, takes completely the opposite. We think that you might have a bomb, so we're going to bomb you before you can bomb us. Right? We take those types of steps. We hoard resources and we waste most of them instead of looking at a fair trade situation so that other people who lack those resources can also have those resources. Right.
We should prop others up as well as ourselves, right?
Yeah. I would love to see a world without borders. Most Christians think it's the end of the world if we became Earth. The united planet of Earth. If we became that, of course, most Christians see that as the end of the world. It would be the end of an old tyrannical world. But if we were to come together with no borders, then we can have fair treatment across a broader space. So I wish the UN actually became the world government. I think it'd be better.
I
Because
would like to see something like that. I'd have to read on of what that would look like, in particular, like the logistics of that. But what else would I ask you? Because I've seen some of your stuff a little bit. Pretty cool guy.
thank you.
How would you like try to promote, like soft promote, like your humanist view without sounding preachy? That's it.
How to promote a humanist view without sounding cringy? Is that what you said?
I said preachy.
Oh, preachy. Preachy. I mean, one, you got to live that life for yourself. That's the first thing. Yeah, you got to live it if you want to breathe it out to people. Well, if I wanted to, that's a good question, because you stumped me for a second here, because that hasn't been I've had my moments where I wanted to make the world a better place and had more of a worldview of that. But then, to be honest, humans suck. So I started becoming more just self-centered about it, and just how can I make my life better and be in a place where I'm treated fairly. But if I truly wanted to promote that, then I would literally have to take a political stance and begin to create an organization that's based on worldwide unity. And you can't help but become preachy, though, because you got to get your message out. Now, what you don't have to be is you don't have to damn people.
Right, of course not. That's just basic common sense. I mean, of course not like damning people for having different beliefs. Right? Just be open-minded, accepting.
Right. I mean, I think, and I wouldn't be focused like how this channel is focused on deconstructing for Christianity. It wouldn't be religious focused. It would have to be nationalist focused. Anti-nationalism would have to be the focus. Religion would be untouchable, except for the fact of saying that everybody should have the right to believe whatever they want to believe, and no one should be mistreated because of such. And then just focus on anti-nationalism. Hey, there's no such thing as nations and borders. These are things that man has created. We've grouped together and caught and created them. We're all sharing this planet. You can't fly above the planet and see the lines, the border lines. And if we're all sharing this planet, then we should be looking forward to making this planet better. And one of the things I would focus on is the fact that if we did not have nations, then we would not have wars. Ironically, there are more people who are afraid of war than they are afraid of dying in a car wreck. But you're more likely to die in a car wreck than you are to die in a war. So I would focus on the fact that we would becoming a one world nation, where one unified world, there would be no more wars, because then there's no nation to fight against another nation, right? It's not going to be easy, because there are certain rules that we would have to set up that would go against what certain countries have. Like if we wanted to have strong gun control, like the people in Europe are not going to be acceptable, and a lot of people in Asia, they're not going to accept the Americas open gun situation. So Americans are going to be like, oh, hell no, you're trying to take our guns. Whereas the majority of the world is going to like, well, we ain't had no damn guns in the first place. So, you got those kinds of hurdles that you have to that would have to be overcome, is those types of differences. But those type of differences can be handled after there is, like, I wouldn't focus on taking away the guns until after the world has been unified. Because if you try to do it beforehand, then it's going to stalemate the whole process.
And no one can defend themselves and attack each other or whatnot.
Right. They're going to, Americans are going to be like, oh, I need this gun to defend myself. But And you know, the old adage was, if you take away the guns from everybody, then only the criminals will have guns. But that's just simply not the case. When you look at so many of these other countries, yeah, the criminals, you may find criminals here and there that have guns, but the punishment is so severe for having that gun that most criminals carry knives, to be honest.
Yeah, blades and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing to fear, like in England, the biggest thing to fear is not a gun, it's a knife. You're more, yeah, if you deal with a thug or criminal, they will more likely have a knife than they will have a gun.
So, what else would I ask you? Would you, so what, like, spaces
or acid
would you go to like, at least talk about these views, like how Christians do? Because Christians, they have a lot of spaces like Discord and like YouTube and their channels. Like, where would you go, for example?
Wait a minute. It was kind of mumbled to me. So could you say that one more time? I know what spaces would I go to, and then go from there.
To discuss like what we're talking about, like our humanist views, because Christians, they have a lot of spaces to go, right? On YouTube and Discord channels. Like, so I'm asking, where would you personally go to?
Well, personally, right now, it's TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube, right? But if I wanted to go wide with it, I would look at the top 10 apps that's being used for communication. So it would be Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Lemon, Twitter, Instagram. And then you have to look at the top 10 in certain other countries. What's the top ones being used in China? What's the top ones being used in Russia, in Europe? And then, so you'd have to look at the top ones being used all over the world, and then put that information out on each one of those platforms. Of course, using translators for the ones that are outside of English-speaking countries. And then be on the lookout for what's the next app or platform that more and more people are downloading. Like, I got on TikTok because TikTok was around before COVID. Well, just slightly before COVID, but it didn't it didn't explode and people started downloading it until COVID. And when I saw people downloading it, I said, okay, that's the next big thing. So you have to always be conscious of what's the next big thing and getting that message out that way.
Okay.
But right now, and then it depends on who you're trying to target. And well, it's not depend on it. It is who you're targeting. But on all those platforms, you have to learn how to target the majority of people. I'm not great at that. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, my channels, the growth that I've had on my channels, in my opinion, have been a little bit of technique, but a whole lot of dumb luck.
Dumb luck.
Yeah, I mean, I ain't gonna lie. I just started taking this thing serious as more of a exposure business type platform. That's why it was so easy for me that when I got a business opportunity a little over a month ago, I stopped doing lives, because I was like, I appreciate everybody who comes on the live. Don't get me wrong, but my real business opportunity is over here, and that has to get more time. But if I was trying to make this more of my business opportunity, I would probably spend the time to learn how these platforms truly work with the algorithms and all that sort of thing. Because there's a lot of scam information out there about what you need to do to grow your platforms.
Yeah, I don't want to follow that.
And I would probably pay somebody. I would pay. Honestly, I would. I don't know if I could afford Gary Vaynerchuk right now, but I would see what level of his programs I could probably afford. I just started using vidIQ like 2 days ago, so I'm gonna see how that goes, since it's been one of the highly rated platform apps to use to help build your platform. But where I am now on it is a little bit of strategy, but a whole lot of dumbass luck.
Wow. I'm gonna keep wishing luck for you.
Appreciate
I don't know. I don't have any more questions for you. I guess. Do you have any more questions for me before I pop out?
No, I'm good. I appreciate you. I got where you stand, so you stand with me, so we good.
All right, man. I appreciate you taking time out your life to talk to me.
My pleasure, Carlos.
Have a good day.
You too.
I don't know how to. You gotta kick me. I don't know how to get.
Shit. Hold on. I done damn near forgot how to do this shit. Wait a minute. There you go. I got it. Telling y'all, I don't. Oh, whatever take it is. I'm gonna get math meds and then I got IG after that.
Greetings and salutations.
Greetings, sir.
Yes, I listen to your intention. Your intention are, I would say they are good intentions. However, I question the practicality of it. Seeing the historical.
Wait a minute. You got a lot of background noise. I think as you move the microphone rubbing against something.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Yeah, so I'm saying that I see the intention that you have in terms of the world coming together. That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm questioning the practicality of it, the historical evidence where that is concerned, and like even if that really happened in the microcosm of the society, and what microcosm of the society you see this happening in, and well, I'm a Christian, however, and I am not partisan, political. I don't like in terms of a country per se. I don't see my purpose of as having a border, right? So when I say that I see what your intention is good, but the practicality of this, I've been at least probably a little bit shorter than you have been, but from what I've seen, the no microcosm of society is really confirming that idea that somewhere without borders will actually work, because these small little segments, whether it is big family,
Mm-hmm.
whether it the institutions, they are all inflated with challenges, territorial challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we get rid of these territorial challenges?
Okay, so you say you don't see it, but truly you are actually living it. The fact that civilizations exist is a demonstration of people coming together of like mind. So even though right now we have borders and we have nations, although borders and nations in their origin came together because people were of like mind. Where are you from?
I'm from Jamaica.
All right, so you're in Jamaica. The original people in Jamaica, those people were on that island and they decided to unify and become one island group of people way back before colonization because they decided to have a civilization there. So that is a microcosm of how people can unify under one cause. Now, of course, because of colonization, because of conquest, we see that empires have been built, but those empires have been built on violence and oppression. And we know that that just simply doesn't work. You can't build and sustain an empire only up to a certain size. Then it crumbles. That's why the Roman Empire, that's one of the reasons the Roman Empire failed, the Mongol Empire failed, and the Aztecs Empire failed, because you can only grow so big and hold it if you're being oppressive. So in order for it to happen, it has to be the world coming together under one agreed upon mind. In the same way civilizations start. And if the mindset is peace, let's use peace for an example. And that's why I say I will focus on war. If we can get the world to say that, hey, I'm tired of war. I don't want any more wars, no wars, no small wars. I'm willing to do this if it'll stop war.
So the question would be, so it's good that we say we don't want any more war, right? But to ensure that the solution is connected with the challenge or the problem, we first need to find out what is the reason why we're having wars. And having found the reason why we're having war, then we can know how to respond to the war. What would be your idea as to why we're having these wars?
Well, it used to be for resources, and resources still do play a part of it. But now we're having wars now for two reasons, really. Resources and false belief in others' aggression. So like America attacked Iran because of a false belief that Iran was trying to build a nuclear weapon just to shoot it at America. I went to Desert Storm because of a false belief that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. So nowadays, and like Russia attacked Ukraine for resources. Iraq attacked Kuwait for resources. So resources. So those are the two reasons we still have war today.
Very good. So we're saying no resources. So I'm getting from you that resources, and what you say, resources and false assumptions, misinformation.
Yeah,
are two of the more powerful reason why people are going to war, countries are going into war.
Yes.
But I want to introduce to you one that is even more powerful and the most potent one, which would have accounted for the two that you've listed, the motive of mankind. I want to say that the resources are not the problem. We have enough resource that we can make available for people. I see food in the United States. Oh, food is wasted miserably. I see there are a lot of simple devices that can be used to have just as simple as clean water. And when you look at, for example, the more powerful countries in the world, when you look at the amount of the percentage of the budget that is allocated for war, if that budget was allocated to so bridging the gap with the haves and the don't haves, then that would be completely eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So therefore, there goes the resources. What is at the center of this, my brother, and behind the scene is man's motive. The heart of mankind. I think so one of our artists think war is not the problem, it's the heart of mankind. So let's say if you have a nice house, if your heart is in the right place, then you use that nice house for the right purpose. But if your heart is not at the right place, you're going to use the house for the place that your heart is at.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, and that sounds, nice, a nice thought process, and I understand what you're saying. Now, the only reason I still say resources is because some of the smaller countries, some of them not as developed countries, are the ones who fight over resources. I.e., that's why I mentioned Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, going into Kuwait. They went into Kuwait because of resources. They needed money. That's why when we got there, all the gold, all the money, all the precious gems, all that shit had been robbed, right? So that was Iraq's reason. Then our American reason was the false belief that they had weapons of mass destruction. Now, that could go to your heart question, but that heart is being deceived by misinformation. And so the more powerful nations that do have resources and don't need to go fight somebody for resources, their heart is in the wrong place. So I'm agreeing with you. Like, we went into Venezuela not because of the tyranny of the president of Venezuela over his people, but for the greed of oil. And then going into Iran is also to get their oil, because Venezuela has thick crude, and in order to make thick crude work for most of the things that we utilize it for, we need a thin crude, and Iran is one of the biggest producers of thin crude. So we needed that. So America needed that too for its greed. So that greed would be the heart problem, right? Agree? Oh, he must have got a phone call. You still there, Matt?
Yeah, man, I agree.
Right. So I understand what you're saying about a heart problem, but that heart problem still feeds into the ideas of nationalism that is placed, that people believe in. And what keeps, you got a lot of background noise. What keeps that heart issue is the fact that we believe in these nations, and we believe in the fear that is promoted by these larger nations.
So basically, you see, I believe in practical Christianity, especially the teachings of Jesus Christ to galvanize people together. I'm not saying that other sources don't teach the same thing, but I go with the teachings of Jesus Christ. Now, when you look at it, why I am to a great extent on the same page that you're on is, for example, my country has two major political parties.
Mm-hmm.
America has two major political parties. Now, many times we put the political parties over the needs of the people.
Yeah.
And therefore, the parties thrive while the conditions of and the direction of the country suffer.
I agree. I agree, except for the part that about Christianity, but I agree about the rest of it.
Well, I mean, everybody have their influence, and I'm saying that my influence is the teachings of Jesus Christ. You understand? That's my influence.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, and when it comes down to a country now, sometimes some of the policies of these countries, when we are like in terms of our idea is that I am loyal to my country.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is that sometimes we see injustices, and just because it is not a part of my country, it's not my concern.
True. We do. And the thing about it, you're absolutely, now I will give you this, because you did say that there are other religions that have a similar, some of the similar teachings as the Christian religion. If people could just focus on those similarities, the good similarities, then that would be helpful. But what's unlike Jesus, who did not disrupt the Roman Empire and cause the Roman Empire to have empathy for the kingdoms that they had conquered, it will be up to the people. The political parties are not going to give up their power. So it will be up to the people to take the power away from them. Like, the American Constitution literally says that if the government becomes a tyrannical state, that it is up to the people to dissolve that government. That's easily said, is incredibly hard to do, but it can be done.
Well, that is what our, as I said, my influence is the teachings of the Lord Jesus Christ. Other sources teach many things, right? But in our system, where for example Jamaica was under the colonial rule, the British, it was like they took like even church services and make plans as to how they would undermine the British authority in Jamaica to have brought independence and emancipation in the island. So, yeah, there comes a time when the people have to make their voice be heard, and at the end of the day, you see, and again, that's why, and that's some of the reason why I sort of have questions where you are concerned, because you see the direction that I see the people going is people are giving more and more of their powers to a small set of people.
Yeah.
And it seems as if the small set of people are less and less in touch with the realities of the large set of people. And this is the thing now. I don't know. This is the thing. These set of people, they're moving into and they're conquering persons' rights to certain things, and that is of concern. If it's going, I would want it to go in the right direction for people empowerment.
No, I'm with you.
I'm really looking at it. Is it really going towards people empowerment? And that's my concern with the idea. That's why I say it's a good idea. But when you do this, some of the things are irreversible. And some of the things we put like a lot of our rights in the hands of a small group. And I'm saying it's hard to get out of them because they're very powerful.
No, you're right. You're right about that. They are very powerful, and we do put our fate in the hands of a small group of people, and that's always been and still will always be. It's just where we're putting that. If there was a worldwide movement to support the United Nations, you see, right now you have the United Nations, but every government, it has an operative that's functioning in the United Nations, supposedly for the people of their country, but not really. They're still functioning for their own nationality, their own country itself. But if the people decided that I'm going to support the United Nations more than I support my nation, then it would give the United Nations that body more power, because they will have the support of the people in every country instead of just whatever politicians who's being puppeted by the reigning government within each one of their individual countries. And so that's why the United Nations is kind of a weak organization, because it doesn't have the people. And I'm going to let you have this last word, and then I'm going to bring up another person, okay?
All right, listen. So like Africa that have the idea of polygamy, and the West have the idea of monogamy, right? Where would we draw the line? Where would we draw the line in terms of this one governance? And I'm using this as an example to say that there are many nations, many groups that have unique ideologies that are not shared and that are not accommodated by other groups. Where do we draw the line? And and what do we use to say what will be standard and what will be, rejected?
We would draw the line at small children and animals. But as far as whether or not someone can have multiple husbands or wives, that would be the agency of the person themselves. Because if I'm forcing you to follow, you wouldn't want me to force you to follow my religious claims, right?
I don't believe in forced religions.
Right. So then you can't force someone else to follow yours. So therefore, if a person wanted to participate in polygamy, they are more than welcome to do so, and it will have a legal standing. But we would draw the lines at animals and children. That's where the line gets drawn.
Somebody would want to say, why animal and children? That's somebody
well,
might feel not so sentimental towards animal and children.
I mean, there's always going to be about a 16% disagreement. And so you're always going to have the law of innovation of diffusion teaches that is always going to be 16% of division. 16% of the people are not going to agree. But when I got 74% of the people, that's 84% of the people in agreement, then the 16% just gonna have to keep on complaining. That's it. I mean, you can never please everybody. So there's no law that's gonna make everybody happy. So you have to go with something that is sustainable for the overwhelming majority of people, and allowing people to have the freedom of agency to choose however many husbands and wives they desire. Well, that's their agency to do so, as long as they're mature adults and have that ability to make those decisions. Live and let live, as long as you're not harming someone else's ability to live and let live.
Well, I see your vision, but it's something we have to touch on. But I do see a vision, but you know, it's a long road. That would be a long road. I tell you.
Every development has been a long road, but it had to start somewhere. All right. Appreciate you, man. Have a good one. All right, this next joke I'm about to bring up, I would say I miss him, but then that might feed into his ego. And we don't want to feed into people's ego.
Whoa, what's happening? Well, I could just, I could say I definitely missed alive and all that. That was that Deconstructing Christianity was up, Coach Rance.
What up, IG?
What's happening? So, speaking to the topic, it's funny, I went live yesterday on Facebook. I don't really go live often because, people were talking about the, I know you don't know if you heard about the come on stage situation when he said on the Cam Newton podcast while he was holding his premature child, and he had the thought, and he said he didn't share with nobody. He had the thought. He said, "That's it. I don't care who my child loves or who they want to be. I'm not throwing you away. I'm going to love you regardless." You know what I'm saying? And that had the, of course, the traditionalist, fundamentalist, biblist people, Christian people in a tizzy. And I just find it interesting. So to speak to the topic of is religion harmful, this is my take on that situation with Kev on stage, and this will give you the answer. I think the way that both people are reacting to Kev on stage, the situation, him saying that he accepts his child and he's picking and choosing like everyone has subjective morality. There's no such thing. It's called collective subjective morality. Nothing's objective here, people. I think that according to what is written, what has been demonstrated in the text, and what has been canonized and institutionalized, that yes, both sides are right. If you think the gays should burn in hell and women and everyone should be stoned according to the laws of Moses, the Bible supports that. If you want to pick and choose to see that, well, Jesus was about love, even though he said not one tittle or tittle should be changed, and for you to keep the laws of the prophets, nor did he rebuke anything about slavery, and especially us American descendant of slaves or Black Americans, that's that's a lot of people, not just us, but I'm just saying us. They pick to choose to overlook that, but just to say that Jesus is this love of representation, masquerade, they're both right, and they're right because of the way that their interpretation and the institutionalism. They're both saying that they both support. Reality supports that you should kill the gays and hate them, and at the same time, it supports, if you want to just focus on the New Testament, that it's all love, which those of us who study over here, we know better. And to answer the question, do you think that interpretive deifies, does deified feelings and emotions and interpretations of humans has been good for humanity? I would answer no. No matter how you look at it, because that's the thing. We are the creations of these gods. And this is why I think that most people who are in hierarchy and high masonry, right? I really think these people know that this shit ain't mystified. I think they're just using mysticism to go ahead and put 20 on 10 so they can use that to manipulate people into their will. I think most of these people who are on the top know this shit ain't real.
I would agree.
I think most of them. Yeah.
Most of the people on the top don't accept this stuff. They just placate to the people to maintain control over them. But I do think that this form of that religion, because people are giving power to some ethereal God that nobody can prove exists or don't exist. It gives them a permission to be as heinous to other people as they want to be. It gives them the permission to say that I can kill the gays because my God says so. I can kill babies because my God says so. I can, go and destroy this nation of people because my God says so. But when you take the God element out of it, and people then have to take their own personal accountability, now a person has to be able, and there still will be some who will say, I can go and destroy this country because I think that those people are bad people. Right? You're still going to have some of that.
Of course.
It doesn't eliminate and create world peace, and we all.
It does not.
Even if we came to a one world government, you're going to have regional thoughts and regional cultures that are still going to think that they are better than others, or that they should have more of this or that. So we'll still have some levels of conflict. We just won't have war conflict. And the elimination of war would be a major thing to have in this world. And then to have easier access to resources and education would also be a major boost to the world. I mean, you got countries right now where kids can't go to school unless they can purchase a uniform. So they're being denied education. But if we was all unified, then those rules have to go. And the world would have to educate the world, giving people opportunities that they wouldn't have under their current nation.
And and that's the part that kind of that baffles me. But I mean, again, I know why, and I try not to say and undermine it's silly. No, it's very ingenious. This is a very complex manipulation that we're dealing with why people believe this. But I think the terrorization that most people don't want to have within themselves, or realization, shit, I said terrorization, but fuck, it is the terror, ain't it? But see, if society reaffirms, this is why they need other people to go along with them, because high key, they know that if I am not affirmed in this life of what I believe, see, the affirming and the assurance is happening here. I think for most people, they have to mysticize that. And I know people who would probably think like, well, yeah, we got to throw something in there, y'all. We can't give it to them straight reality. We got to throw some mysticism, some allegory in there, if you will, some symbolism. So, because giving people that hard truth, or having most people walking around thinking how we think about it, yeah, there are people who are wired. I tell people all the time, I'm more when I think about when I think about serial killers and people who are serial murderers, I think about people who have these beliefs. Because the reason why I do think about that, because see, they have the disposition of believing that they're infested with all of these other sins, like they do with homosexuality. That's why I don't mess with most of these Christians. I have Christian friends, but they know I don't believe what they believe. I said, listen, sweetie, don't ever say out of your mouth, oh, I have to accept you, because I cheat on my husband. I've raped a bitch or two. I'm sorry, what I'm saying, I've done all these things, and God, my subconscious tells me that I'm forgiven. But this is why I accept you, because I said, wait a minute, So you do something, other things that are going to cause harm. I am harm to you from your disposition based off of what you've been taught. That's two different things. You're actually causing harm, not just from a disposition or perspective.
Right.
I am not causing harm. You have the disposition of what my harm is. It's very different. So I know when it comes to people who have these type of beliefs, yeah, they're the ones high key, really are your ones who are out here doing the sexual crimes towards children and have the desire to torture someone. Because when you look at the nature, and I know I'm probably about to go, I'm have to get off here in just a second. When you look at the nature of how heinous the behavior is, well, it matches the pathology of the God, or the people of the God. Like everything about the institution and the way that the God of the Bible thinks It gives me XY. It gives me humanoid. Everything about the movements and the nature. And I think that's why it's real. This is why people say, this is what he's done for me. I know what he did in my life. The Bible is a living word. And true enough, it is. Not because, again, people, I'm deifying it. No, we can't say it would be kind of insulting to reality and disingenuous to the truth if we want to say that this ideal or this God, hear what I'm saying to people, isn't real. You have to give people that. Let them know, oh, yes, baby, it's real. Let me show you why, as an atheist, heathenistic bitch myself, why I have to admit why it's real. Now, are you ready to admit why it's real and not just how you feel?
No, I agree with everything you just said, which is why I say that religion is harmful. And especially when you said that they will look, what they are doing has a practical harm to society, whereas how you live your lifestyle does not have a practical harm to society. Shit, we got enough people on the planet, so that part don't matter.
Right. Contraception was created
Yeah,
for, you heterosexuals.
exactly.
Y'all want
So
to bust a nut and not have a baby? Y'all the originators of it. Where the fuck you think we get it from?
exactly. So
Go ahead.
but that whole thought process is based on them following a religion that says that, well, these people are, and they are a abomination to God, not realizing that shit, what they doing is just as damaging in their God's perspective as what you're doing. But what harm do you cause the people? Unless you murdering somebody, unless you're taking advantage of somebody, you're less harm than somebody who's breaking up households, going out and spreading diseases, or all sorts of things. Creating traumatic trauma on children who watch their parents fight each other all the time, or go through these stressful situations. They're doing more damage because they're creating another generation of kids who are going to do the same damn thing.
And
So,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So like, however a person lives their lifestyle, like my lifestyle, I'm like Boss Lady just said a few minutes ago, I don't give a fuck about who disapproves of my lifestyle or who approves it. You can approve it and I'll be like, okay. You can disapprove it. I don't give a fuck. Because at the end of the day, if I'm not harming you and everything I do is in agreement with other adults, then who the fuck are you to say anything? Because I'm not hurting them.
Well, the people, don't forsake yourself from the unbeliever, from the fellowship of, the ungodly. That's what I'm saying. When I quote the scriptures now, I'm not quoting it because it's deified. I'm quoting it from a place of institution.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the context of how that's written, what the time it's written, it's very carnal. The curse in it is to tell you that the weapons of my warfare are not carnal. But that's the very thing I'm going to tell you so you don't. That's the thing. If think about it. See, I don't just like we have this technology that you and I can pick up this phone like I'm about to do right now. Now I'm 40 years old. I ain't that old, you heard me. But I didn't think I would be able to do this shit right here. Like whole video conversations and all of that. So I'm not gonna underestimate the intellect and the creation of the human species. It would be foolish because we want to brag about the good side, just like we want to do with religion. Same thing with science, too. We are dealing with fucking humans. You don't think, and I'm gonna shut up. Think about when we watch fiction and movies. When we see Superman and anime and all these different things, what we're watching defies the laws of physics and this reality. Yet you are able to see a projection of what defies physics in this reality. Yet watch it in this reality. Then how can you then wonder that humans, the species, especially us fucking XY male humanoids, why would you think then in the same breath that we wouldn't be capable Of course, I'm going to point out homosexuality during a time when there isn't as many homosexuals to throw off what I'm really doing.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there are very logical, practical reasons why this is interpreted like that. It's perfectly logical reasons why someone would intentionally make it interpretive the way that it is. And yes, for us men, this is why all males, and I'm gonna shut the fuck up. Even gay men always want the exceptional, no matter how masculine or feminine. Homosexual, you can tell if a homosexual man ain't shit. Let me tell you why. Because if he only cares about what's in the Bible that has something to say only against homosexuality, he just wants the exceptional sissy card. He ignores the ethnogenesis. Oh, he does this very much. He can be a homosexual does not mean femininity. He can very much be misogynistic. He, of course, it works out for him. He man, guy man, he got a dick. Guy got a dick. He thinks his G spot is the same thing as an asshole, and that's why he could fabricate that the first pussy come from all dick derived ingredients. So a man that is homosexual is not as concerned. If he's only concerned with, oh, accept me for being homosexual, but ignores the shit ton of everything else, you know who you be. I'll talk to y'all later.
Talk to you. Ah, my gosh. That's why I just let him talk. But he makes a valid point. I never thought about that. I never thought about that though, actually. The gay men that I do know who still profess Christianity, I only know of one who looks at all the other atrocities within Christianity. And, you know, he's in homosexual terms that I learned in Atlanta, he would be considered a bottom, although he's not, he ain't like some submissive joker, like completely submissive, but he would be considered that. But he does look at the atrocities of everything else. But some of the more masculine tops, tops, I have met those who ignore the hell out of everything else that's in the Bible and still try to hold on to Christianity and only focus on the parts that they only want to argue the parts that goes against their lifestyle. And the strangest part for me is that I don't know why they don't just throw away the whole damn thing. I mean, if I was a gay man, I would throw away the Bible. I would like to hell with this book. I mean, the Bible walking away from the Bible made me feel, I always felt like polygamy is fine, but I was held back because of my religious beliefs and looked down upon people who had those beliefs. But as I started not looking down on those people, that actually helped me in my deconstruction. But it's always been something that I thought, if somebody wants to do it, why is there an issue? Why is there a problem? As long as they're adults and they're coming to an agreement, who gives a shit? Right? When I was in my first marriage, I used to say to her from time to time, you need help. I know that I'm a lot, so you need help. You really do. And it's funny, I was just having this conversation. I was having a conversation, me and my wife and another, I don't know who he was talking to. It was another couple. Or it was just a woman. I don't know who the hell it was. And we was talking about how we met and everything. And the only part from the conversation that I negated to tell the other person was that, because I was telling my wife now that I'm done with American women. American women get on my nerves, right? But one of the things I neglected to tell the person that we was talking to, because I didn't want that to become a conversation because we had just met the person, was the fact that one of the other things I was telling my wife was that when I get back into the game, I'm going to have more than one wife. These American women and their American mentalities And this non-polygamous mentality, to hell with that. I'm going to have more than one wife, right? Or if I do have a wife, I'm gonna have a girlfriend or something. You know, we're gonna do some swinging something. And I was telling my wife that when we were just friends. I didn't tell that other person because I just met them. Y'all on the internet, so you know, it's whatever. But when you're holding on to these religious beliefs, a person can't be free to think that way without people looking upon them as if they are a problem to society. But the truth be told, it is better for a person to have multiple wives or husbands than it is for a person to be running out cheating and causing heartbreak and breaking up families and having the kids go through all the trauma and all that bullshit. They're doing more harm. You do more harm when you do that, right? I can testify to that too. You do more harm. Because as I've told you guys before, the frustrations that I was feeling within my first marriage, I did step outside the marriage, and it did more harm to that situation than if she had the mindset that we just had, we brought in and had another wife. That would have been made everything work out better. The children would not have went through that harm, right? There would not have been a breakup. I would have been in the house with my kids their entire lives, their entire childhood and teenage years, instead of 2 houses and 2 of everything and separating this and that and, you know, figuring out schedules and all this. There, I look at my kids now and I see there are certain lessons that never got imparted from me because I wasn't in the house with them and didn't have the amount of time to do those, to impart certain things. So it does more harm. And the religious mindset of Christianity today can't see that. Can't see it at all, right? It's blinded by it. It thinks that their way is the right way and it's the only way. So like when my man from Jamaica was talking earlier, Math, that he asked that question about polygamy and monogamy, there would be, if you stop someone from being able to have that situation, then you're actually doing more damage to their culture because you're trying to force them to think and be like you and saying that they're wrong for how they live their life. And it's all based on your religion, even though your religion does promote polygamy. That's the stupid part about it. Only for men though, but it promotes polygamy. All right, so, and it's not the easiest thing to do. You got to have the right mentality and the right people involved. Right. Just like, yeah. And that, right, Boss Lady just perfectly said that when the 2 people start fighting over wanting someone exclusively, that doesn't work. You have to have the mentality of a mutual union. Right. And play, and like she's play their part, play their role, you know what your role is and facilitate that and understand how to change with people. No one's going to stay the same as they were when you first met them, right? Every day you're having new experiences, and in those new experiences, it's changing who you are. Most of the changes are going to be minor, but a lot of those minor changes turn into a major change, especially if it's a negative experience that keeps happening over and over and over again. It turns into something larger. So you have to be able to identify and change with how the people are changing if you want to make it work. And now, unless a person changes to a point where it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. That's why I've never said that marriage is forever. Marriage is only forever as long as you're willing to work on it, right? If you're not willing to work on it and a person doesn't go to the far end of something, it doesn't work. This is one of those comments that is always thrown out there that doesn't really make sense. Patel said, with AIDS and STDs, men still want polygamy. God knows best, one man, one woman. Okay, first of all, your God never said one man, one woman. The second thing about the whole AIDS and STDs thing is the fact that there are more people who get AIDS and STDs who are cheating on their spouses than people who are in polygamous relationships. Because in a polygamous relationship, there is no cheating. You know the 1, 2, 3, 4 people that you're involved with, and those are the only people you're involved with. STDs come up with people who just out there throwing it, getting whatever they want to get. And people who are married to someone or in a relationship with someone, but they're cheating on them. And that happens in religion, Christianity, just as well as any other group. Polygamy is not a hotbed of STDs. Actually, what's crazy is that people who are having the most STDs are people who are in old folks' homes. That was a wild thing that I found out when my pappy was in an old folks' home. That's that happens there more than anywhere else. And he wouldn't have been there unless he had decided he wanted to be there, because he got to the point where he couldn't use the bathroom by himself, and he refused to allow any of his kids to take care of him to that degree. But the God of the Bible never said one man, one woman. That is something that people have added to the thought process of the Bible. This God of the Bible actually gave David all the wives and concubines of Saul. So how can you say this God believes in one man, one woman, when this God gave David the wives of Saul, gave David the concubines of Saul? And when David had multiple wives, God said that he is a man after his own heart. Then David, then through a whole bunch of bullshit, brought Bathsheba into that whole thing. How can this guy say that one man, one woman, when Esther was having one night with the king, who had already had multiple wives? And Esther wasn't even the queen mother. She was like a third tier wife. So this God does not say one man, one woman. That is what post-Roman Christianity became, one man, one woman. But prior to that, men could have as many wives as they wanted, right? And no, the wives didn't just sit at home and eat bonbons either. Go back and read your Proverbs 31 woman. That damn woman is working and building businesses and doing shit. So it's not this Islamic idea of the man. And understand that when Christians say, oh, and the man supposed to provide houses for every woman and all this bullshit, that's an Islamic tradition. And that's just a tradition of theirs. It's not even, it does say that you should only have as many wives as you can afford, but the wives are not sitting at home doing nothing. They are participating in the economics of that household. Let me look up something real quick. Now, I hate when people just give me a little verse, a chapter, without breaking it down as to where exactly in the chapter. Because Patel said, go to the 1 Corinthians. I think I know what she's talking about, but I don't want to say anything. Yeah, through a quick scan, I don't see nothing in 1 Corinthians that says that one man, one woman. I thought this might be where it talks about how deacons and priests should only have one wife. And those are the only people in the New Testament that it says that should have one wife, a deacon or a priest. But I don't know what the hell you're talking about in 1 Corinthians, Patel. That would indicate one man, one wife. One man, one woman. It ain't there. Abraham had a slave wife. Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, had 2 regular wives and 2 slave wives. He had 4 of them. So Christians should be okay with slave wives. They are plentiful in the Bible of slave wives. Yeah, I don't see where Patel made a comment about where in 1 Corinthians. Oh, I'm sorry. She did. He or she did. 1 Corinthians verse 2. What the hell does it say? 1 Corinthians verse 2. Now concerning the matters which you wrote, it is good for a man not to touch a woman, but because the case of sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman should have her own husband. The husband should give to his wife what is due to her, and likewise the wife to her husband. For the wife does not have the authority over her body, nor does the. So this is not talking about having one husband to one wife. This is just saying that a man should be married, because the sexual immorality that Paul is talking about here is having sex with women who you are not making into your wives, or women having sex with men who are not their husbands. This is about adultery. This is not a commentary on having one wife and one husband. It does use the singular, but the cultural structure of this indicates he's just giving an example of having a husband or wife so that you aren't going out here having sex with a bunch of other women, because it's mainly about sexual immoralities. Now, the only sexual immoralities that a person can have in the time frame of Paul is having sex with women who are not your wife, and men who are not your husband. When a man does have sex, and actually is men having sex with another man's wife is the only adulterous part for a man. If a man has a sex with another woman who is unmarried, then that woman is supposed to become his wife. So it's not an indictment of polygamy in that one. Now, a woman in their time frame, she can only have sex with her husband. Any man she has sex with is supposed to be her husband. When she has sex outside that marriage, then she's committing adultery, which was a death penalty to a woman who does that. That's why they brought the little woman to Jesus and said that she had committed adultery, right? Because she was a married woman. So that is not an indication of one man, one wife, right? Paul later is very specific about who should only have one wife. I need to open up a new one. Yeah, because I need all those windows. Let me see if I can find where it's at. And then I gotta be somewhere. I said deacons. First Timothy 3. Okay, let's see. Let's go to it. First Timothy 3:2. And we know that First Timothy and First Timothy is not even written by Paul. So if we go to these sayings is true. Whosoever aspires to the office of bishop desires a noble task. Now, a bishop must be above reproach, married only once, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, and an apt teacher, not a drunkard, not violent, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. He must manage his own household well, keeping his children submissive and respectful in every way. So First Timothy says that only bishops should have one wife. So if men were only, if it was a general thing that men should only have one wife in the writings of the Bible, then there would be no reason to indicate that a bishop should only have one wife. So, yeah. But it's been an honor and a pleasure to be on here live again with you guys today. I do plan on being live again tomorrow, in around 11 and 12 my time, Central Standard Time frame. I'll be going live again tomorrow. So, oh, I hit the wrong thing. So, like I said, as far as 1 Corinthians 7:2, that was complete. As Christians say, that's taken completely out of context and adding your own colonial mindset to it. But anyway, so tomorrow I look forward to going live again around 11 or 12 Central Standard Time. So wherever you are, make your schedule fit my schedule. How about that? But I have to get. I need to get somewhere, and I want to be there, and hopefully, yeah, I need to get up there before traffic starts heading that way, which is going to start heading there in about 20 minutes. So I appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Y'all have a great day. Always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations, and I am out.